The Fawn Pod turns and episodes come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. In one episode, called the 168th episode by some, a wind rose in the mountains of mist. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing podcast, but it was a beginning. Welcome to another new episode of the Fawn Pod. I'm Brett, and I have Cody here with me tonight to talk all things Wheel of Time Season 3. This is one I'm definitely looking forward to a lot.
I bet.
But before we get to that, what you been up to this week, Cody?
Well, I'll just do a short version, which is two things here. One, my weekly Wednesday night AEW show this week had episode 289, of which is probably not significant to anybody unless they are in the know of like the internet stuff going on, which made it precisely one episode longer than WCW Monday Nitro ran back in the day. So
Oh,
there
wow.
was pretty big kerfluffle that they had the longest running Turner, and obviously WWE's been on for like 40 years, but show in a long time. They had a great show Wednesday night, so that was great. Everybody was really happy with how that turned out. And then beyond that, I guess I'll just plug what I did earlier today, which was with my extensive backlog of games that I have for the Nintendo Switch, I downloaded a new game because that's what you do. So I wanted to try Lorelei in the Laser Eyes for a while, and I got an alert on my phone that said it was on sale. It was like technically, I don't even know, 20 or 25% off. It was still like 18 bucks. It wasn't like dirt cheap, but I bit the bullet and tried it, and it's basically it's an interesting concept. You play a lady who is getting into a what's called a hotel that seems to be all but abandoned, minus a couple random characters you bump into here and there, but you don't know who you are, you don't know why you're there, and you don't know what exactly you're supposed to be doing other than participating in a game, it says
Hmm.
through a couple letters that you find and some other things. So I played a section before lunch today, and that was really fun. And I kind of got stuck. And then just before we came on the air a bit ago, I was put it back on and instantly solved like the puzzle I was stuck on and opened up a whole bunch of new stuff. And now I'm promptly stuck again. So there we go.
Nice.
How about you?
This week, it was, well, let's see, it was when was that? I guess last Thursday it came out. The new series of Black Mirror episodes came out. Um, I don't call them seasons because they don't really release in like a seasonal kind of format. They just kind of get some episodes done and just like plop them out.
Oh, okay.
This particular batch has 6 episodes, and I enjoyed them pretty thoroughly. They definitely felt so. The last batch, there was their fifth group of episodes they released about 2 years ago now. Um, they kind of, I didn't notice it. I don't know if it was like intentional that they kind of like strayed from like their tried and true formatting of like these technology gone awry kind of themes. They went into like some more like supernatural type stuff,
Okay.
which was they still were interesting episodes, but it just didn't quite feel the same. And these definitely got back into the technology side of it, and they were all I felt they were really well written, very like thought provoking kind of themes, which was really cool to see. So I definitely would recommend that if anybody's interested in that kind of thing. And the other thing I'll talk about, it hasn't actually happened yet because we're going tomorrow to a concert in Detroit, and it's pretty cool. It something that my wife found, and it's essentially a very small venue. Um, it's the Kalkaska String not quartet. Maybe they're quartet. I don't remember. Is there from their Kalkaska though? This is the string group, and they're playing a bunch of songs from the Lord of the Rings and from Game of Thrones,
Huh.
and it's all by candlelight, also in like
Oh,
this really
okay.
small, like personal venue. So, um, I think it's going to be a very cool experience. Definitely very different from
Yeah,
other things we've done before. And definitely looking forward to that. I'll let you guys know if it was worth the hype. But
right.
yeah, that's tomorrow night. Should be pretty fun.
Well, that's cool.
So I guess with that, let's get into the discussion here. And so I guess off the bat, we'll just give some context here. So you and I are both pretty big fans of the series, this book series. You I believe it's like what, like 25, 30 years now you've been reading since you started reading these books.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I had the first two books in like maybe eighth grade. So yeah, it's probably been 30, 32 years, I would say.
Mm.
Uh-huh.
Um, Much shorter time period for me, probably about like I think it was about 6 years or something since I started listening to the audiobooks. And you probably remember, but it was Cody that coincidentally who kind of made me aware of the series. And I gave it a try and I just fell in love with it. And I'm now halfway through my fourth full listening of the audiobook series. Um, and just for further reference, it takes me about one full year of listening to get through the series on audiobooks. So I'm listening to my fourth turn through it in 6 years.
Wow.
So it's uh not very far off of being just continuously listening to it,
Yeah, that's
really.
that's nuts.
Yeah. But it's just something I really enjoy. I love the stories. I love the characters. And it just doesn't feel like I get tired of it. So uh but yeah, so this should be a fun discussion. It I do have to say it would have been nice to have Justin back for this episode because he was kind of like our more objective set of eyes as a new viewer. He hasn't read the books yet.
Yeah.
It was nice to have that point of view. But he actually recently started reading the books and essentially found himself getting like unmotivated to watch the show right away due to all the changes he was noticing from the first season of the show. So apparently nobody reminded him that duty is heavier than a mountain. Um, but maybe we'll get him back for the next go around or something. But
Yeah, I mean, we'll see at the end here. We talk about if another season's rolling when that happens,
yeah,
like maybe he'll get through those books
that's true. He would have time
by then.
to
So,
catch up by then. So we'll see. Um, and the other thing I'll say right off the bat here is this is definitely a spoiler warning for anyone who has not watched this season of the show. Naturally, that's what we're here to talk about. So we're going to be talking about the show. But also we, we're going to have to talk a bit about book spoilers as well, because yeah, I think it's important just to talk about the changes they've made in adapting this story to the screen. But we're going to try and keep all of those book spoilers for a section towards the end, and we'll warn you beforehand if you want to like pause or go past that point. But
sounds good.
yeah. Uh, so I think we'll start this off just very briefly with talking about just kind of how this season 3 of the show fits into the timeline of the books. And so essentially the majority of this season actually adapts the fourth book of the series, which is titled The Shadow Rising. Rather than so the first season of the show was basically straight up the first book, and the second season was the second book, and they have skipped the events of book 3. But to my understanding, they're planning to come back and cover some of those later because they felt like it fit the flow of the show better to do that after these events that they're doing here. But it's interesting because this season also is drawing events from as late as book 7.
Wow. Okay.
So it's a bit, and we're going to talk a bit later on about just how they've kind of had to crunch things down, to make this all work for the screen. But I think moving on, what I'd like to do is just talk about characters, because the Wheel Time for me has kind of always been about the characters, their journeys and like their interactions with the world and everyone else around them, even more so than just simply the events that happen within the story. I've always felt like it's a character driven story, not an
Hmm.
event driven story. So, um, we've got a very large returning cast here, including Moraine, Lan, Rand, Mat, Perrin, Egwene, Nynaeve, Lanfear, Leandrin, and just too many others to really list. It's a huge cast of
Yes.
characters that are they don't. There's so many of them that don't feel like side characters. They're they're like a whole bunch of main characters basically. Um, but we do get a large number of new characters this season as well. Well, I'm going to include Moghedien in there. We saw very briefly at
Yeah.
the end of season 2, but really, it's stand out here. And then we get more of the Forsaken, including Ravine and Samael. We get the Aiel, including Bear, Mullane, Ruark. And we even get Morghese, Glad, and Gawain from the
Yep.
Kingdom of Andor. And Fail comes up as a bit of a surprise. Honestly, I was kind of thinking they might leave her out of the series based
Yeah.
on how like season 2 had gone. But we do get her here, and she's featured, fairly prominently. So, uh, are the characters that you were like really impressed with this season, or characters you didn't care for?
Yeah, well, hopefully this isn't taking up too much time, but I actually made a long list of the characters I enjoyed as standouts in this season,
Yeah,
and I
go
kind
ahead.
of broke them down by the different plot threads. So, starting with like the Two Rivers plot line, I really enjoyed Perrin, I think, more in this season than I have in the other two. I don't know if that is the actor here, and I did jot down all their names because I'm not familiar with all of them, but Marcus Rutherford, he just did a better job, I felt like, carrying his own story, particularly in this season, because he was the featured character in like that whole subplot in the Two Rivers.
Mhm.
And kind of this idea of like him overcoming the demons of his past, like with his wife, and he still felt the guilt for that, and the pressure slash uncertainty of him like being a really unwilling leader for the people of the Two Rivers, and then kind of like accepting his destiny and growing into that a little bit more, which I actually put a note on here. I think because he was like reluctantly going for his destiny, it almost made me like him more than Rand in this season because Rand was very embraceful of his destiny. Like he just knew what he
Yeah.
was supposed to do. So the struggle was definitely stronger here with Perrin. And then Fail, as you mentioned, like it took me a second when I was watching her on screen before I realized who it was. And
Oh,
then I
gotcha.
was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah. And then I like was just watching the scene like nodding, like what a great cast job for that character.
Yes,
Oh,
I agree.
it was like the attitude and the look and the like physical stature. I was like, this is a absolutely great casting job they have here for her.
Hmm.
And then Bane and Chiad, I both enjoyed quite a bit this season as well. Just the two of them, they're almost always together as a single character, more or less.
Right.
But
It is. Yeah.
but it was fun because they were like they came off as like somebody you were I put simultaneously like you were a little afraid of them, which I feel like you get a little bit in the books also, but here you also like see the playful side of them a little bit more too, with like how they use their culture as like to play Maiden's Kiss or whatever.
Right. They're like
Um
always tormenting the other
yeah,
characters.
which I thought I was like, that's a fun way to like make these characters exist in here. And then
Hmm.
last one's for me in that plot line, which they weren't featured a lot, but I really enjoyed what they had were Matt's two sisters. I thought actually did a really good job as like younger actresses and just kind of like being uncertain of their power and like trying to hide it a little bit. And I thought they did a really nice job also. Um, you want me to keep going? Different plots, or you want to add anything in that one?
Um. Yeah, I could throw a couple thoughts in there. So I also I enjoyed that Perrin was allowed his character. I mean, this is the way it goes in the books too. Is his character is very kind of reserved to start with. The book is going to a lot more detail on like why his character is that way. We don't necessarily get that told to us, here in the show. But it is very fitting of his character's journey. And it was really cool to see him like kind of just kind of embrace his character, just kind of like becoming more than what he was, and growing. So I enjoyed a lot of what he did as well. I definitely agree with File. It was almost perfect to what I envisioned in my head from what she was in the books.
Yeah.
Um, it they it just felt like her. I looked and felt just perfect. Um, and yeah, I really enjoyed also. Alana has been very good throughout the entire series, I feel like, but like in this season especially, they feel like they gave her more growth as well.
Yeah, good call.
And she really kind of had more she just had like more emotion and more that she brought to the table. Especially with the whole plot around her losing Ivan, and struggling with that emotionally. I felt like they really brought that out really.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good call. And I do feel like that was a character like that was there in the previous seasons and didn't, overly impress me, but
Mm,
given more to do emotionally and somewhat plot wise as well here in this season, like you're right, she did come out a little more than she had in the previous seasons. Yeah, good call. And almost died like 6 times in this season as well. Seems
yeah,
like she was like, I'm dead, heal
seriously.
me, and I'm dead, but heal me, and I'm dead. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Which you never know, right? Because we'll get to that later, but like you just never know with
Yes.
this TV show. Like any of these book characters seemingly could go at almost any
That's
time.
I
So
I kept telling my wife that the whole way through. I was like, you know what? I know what's supposed to happen, but I can't tell you what's going to happen.
yeah,
So
awesome. Next plot line for me, with just over to the Aiel Waste. I really thought Rand did a nice job this season. This is Joshua Stradowski, but it felt like he also grew into his character more this season. And I don't know if that's because he is a younger actor and just is getting better as he goes, or if that was just a really good acting job that he seemed like the clumsy farm guy in the first season or two, and now he's a little more confident as a character. If
mhm.
so, kudos to him for acting job because I totally bought it, hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, he
Um,
brought that like you definitely feel like he's taking control of his own life,
yeah.
where
And
definitely was just like just kind of hanging on by strings in the first couple seasons.
yeah, when the show started, I'll be honest, I was a little worried he was going to be the next Hayden Christensen, and I was like, boy, this is going to be a rough one to build the series around. But he has gotten better. And the other one for me in that plot line was honestly Moraine this season. I thought did a really nice job as well with just having a really nuanced set of things that she was going through, whether it was like worry over Swan or whether it was like what she had seen in Rubidian, which we'll get to, or it's always the connection with land. That's more of it's not a physical connection, but it's a little bit of a physical connection, and then the connection with Rand, which is not a physical connection, but obviously is pretty tied to her as well. So
Mhm.
those would be my two over in the waste. How about you? Anybody there?
Um, yeah. I mean, some of the thoughts Rosamund Pike as Moraine is, obviously the most established person in this cast, I believe. Certainly the most well known, like the most well known face of the cast.
Yeah.
And I think she absolutely does not disappoint here. I feel like she's uh definitely showing off why she's like an A-list, you know, actor. And you really, if you watch any of the like the behind the scenes little extra things that they have on Amazon, you can absolutely tell like she is fully invested in this character. Like she really loves the character and wants to do everything she can to bring it to life.
Mm.
And like I feel like she's absolutely doing that.
Yeah, I did. I didn't listen to most of the behind the scenes stuff, but I did, out of curiosity, when episode 8 ended, I was like, "Let's watch this," and Karen was like, "No," but I was such a waited till she left, and then I and then I watched it anyway. But yeah, she was definitely like she had a like a more mature. I've been in a lot of things and like can see plot threads differently than maybe other people can at a younger age, with the wisdom of
Yeah.
life and seem to be like this is a fantastic story we're telling. So yeah, I would agree with that completely. And then the other thread here, I guess, I got to give out some love again this season for Nynaeve. I thought Zoe Robbins was really good with a lot of emotional range, but it was different emotional range than the last two seasons, which I enjoyed.
True.
Like
Yes.
she's been mostly either angry or in love, and this season,
Right.
like it really wasn't those two. It was really like getting along with other people and like being uncertain of how do I fit into this world that I'm in or this place that we go to or whatever this may be. Her powers were like stressed less this season, but there was still a bit of a journey there that she went on as well. So
Mm.
definitely liked her. And Elaine, I thought did really, really awesome this season as well. We got to see a little more of her actually having an expanded role, I would say, off the last season,
True.
where we saw her like probably come into her own a little bit more, up to and including like, striking out independently, but also like, spoiler alert, but like even the part where she kills the Black Aja in the temple in Tamchico, I
Hmm.
was like, damn, like that was like straight up vengeance that she was just out for blood right in
Right.
that moment. I was like,
Yep.
whoa, that's a new side of her too. So, and you might know this better than me, but I looked for like 20 minutes how to pronounce this actress's first name, and I have yet to find people agreeing on this. So the British people are fighting with the Irish people who are fighting with the American people, but apparently it's like a
Okay.
Spanish name. So I'm very confused on
A
this, but
Spanish name. That's true. Okay.
so it's I have it as Kiara. I don't know if that's correct or not. Kiara, maybe Kiara.
They in like the cast meetings that I've seen, they other people have called her Kiara.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it has like a unique spelling, and I'm not sure. So the two of them, and then in that plot thread also, I thought, as always, Leandrin, fantastic.
Mm,
This is
yes.
Kate Fleetwood. She is just great. Again, we same in this season as we have in the past. She's ruthless in some parts and straight up kills some of her helpers in this season, but also had to like grovel for people that were more powerful than her in this season. And so it's like this, um, again, like little dichotomy for her is like she has to kind of flip who she is based on who she's around also. And we also find out like Jesus Christ, even more trauma to her backstory where I'm like, God, I hate this lady, but nah, I feel so bad for her. Like every time they show
Yeah.
anything about her. And then my standout Forsaken for this season, parentheses, of course, your number one on my Heartland fear, was Mogideon, I think, in this season as well. She was great with the like undercover job she was doing with the Black Aja, and then also like the compulsion scene was fantastic, I thought, with her and the girls.
Hmm.
And then where she was like making one of the gray men, and then also, Jesus Christ, what did she do to Samael? My God, that was
Yes.
gross, man. That was like some
Oh,
Silent
so
Hill
good.
shit or something.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah. Yeah.
I was confused in that scene though. So was she like just killing him for pleasure? Like it almost looked like she was like trying to like steal his essence, but I'm like, a lady can't do that based on like the laws of the world. So
Right. I mean, I think she was just wanted to kill him and was having fun with it,
yeah, I guess so.
personally. Um, yeah, I enjoyed uh the characters that we got in the Tanchiko storyline probably had like there's a greater number of my favorite characters this season in that storyline. I thought a lot of that stuff was great. Um Matt, it was absolutely like really unfortunate just the way that they lost the original actor. He just we still don't know. He just like basically just walked off the show for whatever reason he had, personal reason.
Yeah.
Um, but this new actor they found, Donald Finn, um, my goodness, it Matt like finally fully feels like Matt, and it's it is so fun to see.
Yeah.
He just is he's so charming, and he's great with the delivery of lines and being kind of cheeky and charming and like flirty with the other characters. Like that is 100% what he's supposed to be from the books.
Yeah, I was gonna say you don't really miss Matt 1.0. Come on, that's you
Yeah.
just wish Matt 2.0 had been 1.0 is what you're really saying to me.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
I really do.
this guy understands the assignment.
Yep. Um and yeah, I enjoyed Lane. I enjoyed Nynaeve as well. I Leandrin is so interesting because this is a character in the books we really don't know that much about her. We just know that she is mean and she is a dark friend and like is constantly, you know, basically trying to kill Nynaeve and Elaine through the story. Um we definitely don't get all of this backstory and all these things that have been fleshed out in the series.
Yeah.
And uh whoever made that decision, I I think that was absolutely the right decision because this character is so much more interesting now and is very just conflicted and like I say, she only does awful things,
Hmm.
but you also somehow you still also like kind of feel bad for her, and like our they've now set up this thing where we have to kind of wonder if at some point she will switch sides, maybe. Um, they certainly are trying to push that angle a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the acting job is phenomenal. And just the way they've written this character is wonderful. And Moghedien is 100% just terrifying, which is another break from the books in which uh she is she kind of has like this creepy side to her where she's like always kind of like in the shadows, like just watching and like ready to pounce, uh but doesn't do it, like doesn't do these kinds of things, not to this degree
Yeah.
in the books. And I think in part it's because they are, they've condensed the number of Forsaken down to a much smaller number, like almost half. And so they're my thought is they're kind of combining a couple of those characters into like this super Forsaken. But again, this like whoever made the decision to like write her this way, uh, kudos to you because like this character is awesome. Just like every scene she's in is great, and she's just the way she's acted is just she just has this really odd just aura about her that
Yeah.
just really seems to fit the character just so well.
Yeah, I don't know that actress at all, but it's like she has a very unique speech pattern, and I like how she talks
Yeah,
and in
I
her
don't
body
know.
language.
Uh, it's I wonder if that's like part of her natural you know just her accent or if that's part of the character she's doing. But there's like something there that I try and figure out,
Yeah.
and I can't figure out what it is.
It
It's
is
pretty
a
interesting.
fairly diverse cast in terms of like where they're from and accents and things. Who,
It
who
really
was
is.
I was just watching something and who is Australian? I was just watching. Is that it
Zoe
was one of the
Robbins.
girls?
Yeah, Nynaeve is I've heard her speak off camera, and she definitely seems to have an Australian accent.
Yeah,
That's
that
something
must have
that's
been it. And
weird.
she was talking. I was like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah, and you don't get that in the show at all.
right.
Um, and the last one also from that storyline as well. Min, and Miranda said this as well. He's like every scene that she enjoys watching her because she's
Mm.
always bringing like some quippy line or some funny delivery. And this is a character that um I saw a meme that I enjoyed quite a bit that like Bookmin is like kind of this kind of like level-headed farm girl kind of character.
Yeah.
And the meme I saw was like had this photo of like someone like representing that, and then like Showman it's like this picture of like this Asian woman with like curlers in her hair, and she was smoking a cigarette, and she had like a ratty tank top on. I was like, it really is kind of like that. But it also it works. It's not the same kind of character from the books, but it works here. It's very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Um, all right, I think I covered all the characters that I was gonna talk about
Yeah.
as well there. So, um, the I did want to talk a bit about the visuals this season, and because it like I noticed right away from the very quickly in the first episode, um, I noted that that fight that in the tower, that opening scene, it felt like I was watching like a high budget movie.
Mm.
The camera angles they're using and the lighting and just the aspects that they're using, uh it felt like I was watching a movie that cost like a half a million or $500 million, and it was just like glorious to watch. Like all the way through the season, I felt like it was like that.
Yeah, it's a very pretty show, and I think it's gotten prettier with each season. I know there's probably parts that were very heavy on CGI, but man, I already have said in past podcasts, I'm not good at picking up on that. This felt and looked like a very real world to me.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing to me that stood out are the weaves, and that's just because obviously they are not a real thing. Even in their world, it's like not a real thing. So they do look different. It's striking on
Yeah.
the screen. But yeah, everything else just seemed really, really good, I thought. Especially in this season. And they had a bit of this in season two. Season one, not really even so much, but like the the way they represented the different places they went to in this season, they were all very strikingly different from each other. Like
Yes.
Tanchico, I loved just how like dirty and grimy it
Yeah, it
was,
was so
and
cool to see that very, very different atmosphere.
yeah, and then like the Aiel Waste, I mean, it's a desert. What can you do with that? Like so many things, so many properties have done desert. You can't do much with a desert, but Ruidian itself, the city in there that they go to, like that was very different. It's just like with these they get kind of went into like why they're there, but like just these like they looked almost like human hairs like sticking out of the ground, but they were like magnificently large and like translucent. They look like big
Mm,
crystals.
yep.
And I think Karen even said like watching it like this looks like different than anything I've seen before. Like this is a really cool area that they've made, which I kind of agree. Like the fog shrouded city that they were like walking through, and it just seemed like a special place even in this world, which obviously in the books it is a very special place as well. So I think they did it justice here.
Mm. Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I was very impressed with the changes they've made to how the waygates look as well.
Oh yeah.
Um, it's not, it's still not exactly the same as they're described in the books, because in the books they are essentially a like a solid stone door,
Right.
and like it's not like two pillars standing there. It's like a doorway, a big physical doorway. But the way that they made them now so that the vines like grow and connect and like create a physical doorway that then opens, I thought was both a beautiful to watch, and also really kind of brought it back to what they are meant to look like, it very closely anyways. And to be honest, I kind of wish that the book versions were written to look like this, because
Mm,
they looked really good.
yeah, they were pretty cool.
I seriously doubt they will, but I would hope that they could find a way to go back and re CGI like season one and make those waygates look like these ones.
Yeah.
Um, that would be really cool if they could, but I don't think they have that capability. But who knows?
Probably not. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because it does create a bit of a kind of a plot hole of sorts.
Yeah, I mean the gates in general, I don't know if I have this later on or not, but like the gates in general, like the way gates and then also the like arches. I mean, there's a lot of gates in this series. Let's just put it out there. There's like the trials that they go through the tower. There's like the
Yep.
way gates. There's the red arches that they go through, that Matt went through to see the Aelfin here. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's like the rings in Ruidion, and like there's all these different gate
There are
waves that they
many
go through.
passages. Yes.
Yeah. Several of which seem to have changed location here from my memory, at least in some spots, but I
They
understand why they
have.
made some of those changes. So,
Yeah.
visually for me, and one other thing I'll point out too, it's both a good and a bad for me, I feel like, because when Rand channels in particular, we really only maybe we saw like Shamael channel in season one. We haven't seen many men channel in this show.
Not many.
Um,
No.
but the way the like taint is, well, that sounds bad. But the way the taint is presented here, the black within all of the weaves and stuff, like in the I think it is the final episode, yeah, when he makes like the rain happen and stuff, and you just
Mm.
see like this huge swirl of the weaves, but then also like that black, almost smoke-like substance kind of
Yeah.
mixed in with it. Like you can see that there's something wrong with it, which is pretty awesome. Um, but also very visually hard to make look as realistic as possible at the same time, I feel like. So it's kind of a bit of a double-edged sword there, but I think it looks good overall.
I would have to agree with that. There are definitely moments when Rand is channeling where the smoky kind of inky blackness that is amongst his channeling doesn't quite look real.
Yeah.
Whereas when it's someone else channeling and it's just various forms of light, essentially, it's probably just it's easier to put those into a scene and have them look real, I suppose, than that. Like smoke, I think would be a difficult thing to make look real in that way.
Yeah.
But it's necessary to be there. Like, and I think the way they're doing it looks very good, but it also doesn't always look real. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Good way to put it. That's about all I really had for visuals.
Fair enough. Yeah, I just in general, I thought it just like I said, it's just very beautiful. The whole season is all the way through. You can see like photos. I saw some like side by side from like season one to season three, and just the way that like one looks very like dark and dingy compared to what we see this season. Just in general, in most scenes, just the lighting is so much nicer.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, there was a lot of scenes in season one where it just looked like they were walking across my backyard, and this
Right.
season was all over the place. So,
Yeah. Uh, I think now we'll just kind of like open it up to just general positive and negatives that we have from the show. Just big scenes and moments, things like that that you can think of. We'll just start throwing stuff out and just talking about them.
you want positives or negatives, or just blend them together?
Just whatever you want to throw out.
Well, I'm gonna start with I would go back to, I already mentioned it, but I would go back to how Ruidian looked on screen. I just think, this concept of like this place where would-be clan chiefs would go and they have to like basically walk through the city. I mean, it's more or less all they're doing is walking through the city, but like you see all the corpses that are laying there and like the people that weren't
Right.
able to do it. And then you see, forget the guy's name that had walked in, the brother that was ahead of Rand.
No. Mirrodin.
Myriad, yeah, he's ahead of him. Like Rand can see him in the ahead of him, and then as he continually, gets up to him, but just this guy like screaming out in pain and like gouging his eyes
Yeah.
out, and
Claws his own eyes out.
you're like, oh my God, what's happening? And then I also thought it was good that they had Rand like, sometimes he would take a step and like he would go back in time, and other times he'd have like, several steps. Because I was like, oh my God, if he's doing like every step he takes, this is gonna be a long ass sequence.
Right.
But just kind of this struggle where like some unseen wind or force was like basically like tornado winds blowing him sideways
Hmm.
as he's trying to continually move forward. So everything about that looked pretty cool. I liked the rings that Moraine was in also, just kind of continually spinning and just seeing the horror on her face that she was experiencing all these different realities, and just that was really cool spot, I thought.
Yeah. It definitely had a very like ethereal kind of feel to it. It felt like a special location, and there really were moments that episode that were like felt like a horror movie almost. Like uh, the varying levels of emotions that they brought out in that one single episode was really really pretty impressive to me. I it was they say they characters just had like fear on in their eyes, and it just the way that things were presented was very creepy. And like it they say it was just for Rand especially, it just felt like a struggle the whole way through. um yeah, very enjoyable to see all that. Yeah, I also like the also going back for me to the first episode again, with the fight in the tower. We watched that like 7 times
Mm.
in total. And like I kept finding new things to notice and appreciate in that scene, not even just the whole, not even the episode as a whole, but like just that scene. um I like it was choreographed really well. There's just stuff going on everywhere in the background. And it was just very cool. We up to this point haven't seen power used that way, like in full combat. And so all the different ways they were using it, and the different weaves, and how they were able to, kill or hurt other people with them was really interesting and cool to see.
Yeah, when that scene started this season, basically, I was like, holy shit. Like, it almost made you
Right.
question if you had like missed the first episode and that was like episode 2 or something, because you were like, what an explosive way to get into a whole
Yeah,
new
they hit it
season.
hit it running. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. To that, I just had as one of my positives was the entire plotline this season and with the Black Aja, I just thought was really well done. Like the little bit of turning on themselves in different places and like the real threat that they proposed or posed, I should say, for the tower, just kind of a paranoia of who's on their side, who's not on their side. And I mean, they did damage too, so it wasn't like they were just like, villains to be villains. Like they had serious threats associated with what they were able to accomplish. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's a super. If I hadn't read the books and I was watching this plot thread, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like who do we trust? Which they do in the season as well, but it's like very well done. You don't know who's on what side, and then early in the season they're like, well, we think there might be another one in the castle. We don't know who it is yet. And like we only know even the Black Aja themselves were like, we only know a couple of their Black Aja, like that's
Right.
how it's set up. And
Yep. Yeah, it's done well. Like even my wife was just questioning, things would happen. She'd be like, "Oh no, she's don't tell me she's gonna be black too." And like so, you definitely have a sense of that not knowing who to trust going on, and it's done really well.
um my favorite episode, not Karen's, but my favorite episode was the Battle for the Two Rivers this season. Which I have always been a sucker for a long drawn out fantasy battle sequence, whether it's Lord of the Rings or whatever. But
Sure.
this one was really fun. It had enough twists and turns and highs and lows as they were going through, but it was just like this constant layering of the characters and what they were doing and who was going to die or be hurt and like what was the next twist going to be in the battle. Is this where Perrin's going to do this one thing at, or like what's going to happen as we watch this play out. That was really fun to me. Also, we had the White Cloaks involved with that, along with the Trollocs and some, yeah, I guess, dark friends. I guess they were. Honestly, they seemed like a mercenary
Yeah.
army with them, which
Right.
I don't know that that's how I typically think of the dark friends as more like a individual here or there, but
Yeah, represented a little bit differently from the books, but
yeah.
yeah.
That was a really, really great episode, though. I liked that one all the way through. And for my wife, she said she generally doesn't prefer those episodes that are just like a singular plot through the whole thing.
Mm.
Because there were a couple episodes that were formatted very differently this season with just, a focus on one set of characters basically all the way through. But I liked that one considerably.
Yeah, I myself I enjoyed that the entire episode was just the Two Rivers battle. Um in part because it's so important. It's a big focal point in the books, in the story in general, that uh it felt like giving it its own big like it's just a whole episode to itself. Kind of like felt like it gave it that weight, and because there was so much going on as well, like it
Hmm.
needed a whole episode to be able to show all that. And yeah, I also, it was just fun because it kept amping up, like upping the stakes. Like the Trollocs attack, and then they like back off, and you're like, oh, that was really easy. I actually had a moment where I was like, oh, don't tell me that was all it was. And then it's no, they like here it comes again, and it's even worse. Um, and I absolutely, towards the end of that episode, like I was just like on the edge of my seat. It just it had like you could feel like the tension and just the adrenaline of it. And especially the moment where Perrin grabs the hammer, and so he's got his axe in one hand and the hammer in the other, and he's
Yeah,
just going to town. Um, that had me really amped up. I enjoy that tremendously.
that was yeah, it reminded me a little bit of like Thor with his Stormbreaker and Mjolnir at the
Yeah,
same time. I
totally.
was like, damn, he's going to town on this one. I had a couple. I don't know that they're negatives, and I can't remember some plot points of the book as well. So, but on the battle where they were fighting, even though it was like my favorite one for sure. Um, in the books, I think it does play out this way too. Correct me if I'm wrong, but at the end, when Perrin then does go with the White Cloaks at the end, is that also what happens in the books? Does
No.
does he submit himself or not?
He tries to, and the rest of the village says, "Nay, you shall not do this."
Okay,
And essentially they like force the White Cloaks to retreat and back off without taking Parrot.
okay. Well, that
So
that would have been better, I think. It's just
I
weird for
agree.
me because like the White Cloaks. I mean, it isn't when the battle's over, isn't it basically like the sun is coming up? Or no, that might be a different scene I'm thinking of, but um, it's like they just fought all of these terrible monsters together for like hours, and then he's like, "Well, you must still be a dark friend.
Right.
Got to take you with you." And I was like,
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely plays out differently in the books. Um, and uh, I was left wondering um, exactly where they're going with that plot. Um, obviously we don't see the end of that this season, so
"Yeah,
I'm not certain where they're going with that. I guess we'll have
could
to
he
see.
become a White Cloak? Wouldn't that be weird?
That would
Ooh,
be weird.
that would be
That would
weird.
be
Why did Perrin leave Pat and Fade alive?
because then he couldn't come back later in different seasons. That's
Come
why.
on, just kill the guy in the moment."
Yeah. I
One,
I mean, it does fit the character. Obviously, like Perrin's whole thing is this struggle between him being like having this like ultra violent, like
yes.
natural urge, and having a brain that's telling him, I don't want to fight, and that constant struggle within. So it absolutely fits the character, but as it always is for the good guys, such a stupid move.
Yes, I could see somebody who didn't know the books well just being like, well, he's trying to protect his village from like this guy and his evil army, and like, why would you not kill him? Much less trust him at his word that he will get up and leave and take the
Yeah.
monsters with him, which he does. But I mean, um, not a criticism per se, but I would have liked to have seen. Maybe he had enough going on, that's why they didn't do it, but I would have liked to have also seen Perrin use a smidge of his like wolf powers in this battle.
Yeah. I really wondered, like, where are the wolves in this fight? They should have been there per the books. And why would he not use that advantage that he has? It was odd that it wasn't used. I
Yeah.
I don't know why they made the decision, but
I
maybe they just
yeah.
felt like there was too much and they couldn't fit it in. I
That could be. I mean, there was a lot going on in that battle, but I thought it would have been nice to have it there just for Fail to like see him for who he really is, like the full extent of what he is.
right. Yeah.
So maybe that moment will obviously come at some later time, but would
Mm.
have been great also. Another positive for me was just how different and creepy the eel fin looked when Matt went
Oh
through
my
the
goodness.
archway, which I kind of assumed was like some weird costume slash CGI or something. And I was reading about this earlier today, and apparently that was like a legit actor, and it said they used. Maybe you read about this. It said they used some brand new technique to adhere the hair to a human's face using electricity. I don't even begin to understand what this means, but apparently it was a real person with like the stuff on their face
Oh wow.
that just looked super ass creepy. So I don't know what this is all about, but I was reading about this earlier and
Interesting.
didn't have the
Yeah.
details of like how that worked, but I was like,
I'll
damn, okay.
I'll have to look into that some more. Hey, the character 100% looked like it came out of like um like just the coloring very much looks like Pennywise.
Mm,
Like and this character legit looked like he just walked off a horror movie set. Um and uh just to tie into that, like when we see Min's viewing of Matt in the red door frame earlier in the season, like I freaked out. Like my I was just watching it and she did that and I was like, they're gonna do it.
they're going
Like
there.
because I legitimately thought they weren't gonna do that at all.
Yeah.
Based on where he was physically in the world. And it just I kind of had this like feeling like, well, it's just not something they can fit in. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the story,
Right.
even though it's an amazing part of the story books. I honestly thought they weren't going to do it. So when they revealed that Min had the viewing of him hanging from the frame, I had a very happy moment internally there. And yeah, uh the fact that they then also followed up and did it this season caught me off guard as well. And but I was very happy with what they gave us in that scene.
Yeah, it was. I think it might have been the same article. I'm not sure, but I think what's his name? Jenkins,
Yep, Judkins.
um, said that he knew he wanted to include those in the series, but he just didn't feel like the first couple seasons made sense, like to throw that in there. But it was an article on, forget now, Vulture maybe, or some website I was on that had the thing about the makeup, and they were saying it was also like the is out there as this is a fantasy series. Like it was like they called it like the first cosmic element of the
Hmm.
show. Like there's this other world beyond this world which we already see that has all of these layers and like there's so much going on, but there's
Yeah.
more still.
Okay. Yeah, I could see how they describing that.
So kind of interesting. That may come back up later in our discussion yet here today.
Yes.
I had a question for you just because I haven't listened to the books or read the books in a while. Why is it that the Forsaken just don't try to go get Kalendor themselves?
Uh so the prophecy says that it can only be taken by the hand of the dragon,
Oh, okay.
essentially. Like there's some sort of force, some power that will not allow anyone to claim it except for Rand.
Okay. So it's like a sword in the stone type
Yeah.
thing or
Yeah, it
whatever.
is.
Okay.
They haven't given us that lore yet. Maybe they won't, but yeah, that's how it is in the books, is that no one can take it except Rand. So
Okay. I got to ask you, here's a quiz question. What was the single most distracting thing in this entire season? And go.
distracting thing.
Curious if you
Um
had the same answer. My wife and I had the exact same answer on this question.
distracting
Just did not seem like it belonged in this story or this world whatsoever.
thing. Okay, so it wasn't like a season long thing, but the one thing I can say that kind of felt a bit out of place was the short amount of time that we got with the wayfinders.
Hmm.
Um, because they just like not even and Matt and Elaine get on a boat, and all of a sudden there's these people that like have these amazing powers, and we spend like 2 seconds with them, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
Um, it to me that felt a bit out of place, or they just it's just another thing where we don't have time to flesh these things out right now. Uh, but as far as I don't think I can't think of anything that like was like a nagging thing that was bothering me. So I'm curious what you have.
So both of us had the same reaction. The most distracting thing in this entire season, and it says a lot, but probably my biggest negative of this season, which is saying that this is a good season, was Moraine's straw hat. Drove us nuts. It did not seem like it fit this world at all.
Okay,
We were
yeah,
like, is she like a farmer? I'm so confused what's happening here. Like it logically makes sense to like be in the desert and have something to like
sure.
shield your face and
It's
your
a
eyes,
very
but we were like that the way it was constructed, like as a costume piece, we were like, that doesn't match anything in this world whatsoever. Like,
I can see that now.
who's got
Yeah,
that
it
fashion? I don't get it.
obviously it's a very light and breezy form of head attire that would be
Yeah.
perfect for a desert, but it did look like it belonged like on a scarecrow
It
more
was a
than
silly thing, but we
more
were
than
like,
this
this is ridiculous.
immensely powerful magical human being.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. On a a similar thought process though. Um, Tom's hat, who I mean I was overjoyed that we got Tom back as well. But Tom's hat has a very thick brim and it looks
Mm,
like very heavy. And that every time I saw it, I was like, man, that what kind of a hat is that? So I don't know about that, but
that's funny.
yeah, the hats in this world are interesting.
At least we got Tom back. I didn't know for sure we were going to get Tom back. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just very glad we did. I enjoyed the character that we briefly got him in the season one and then didn't have him in season two.
yeah,
So hopefully he'll be there through the long haul now.
loving it.
Um, let me see here. I had uh, I mean, I just thought like the scripting just in general all season was great. Um, it it felt like they are learning how to just put like amusing moments and funny one-liners and fit them in seamlessly to the story. It just there was so much going on that was just fun to watch. It
Hmm.
even though people were like in terrible situations or or what have you, or it always felt fun to watch on screen. And like we brought up like Bane and Shiad like constantly offering to play main skits with everyone they could, and that was like funny every time, and like especially like Loyal's
Yeah.
reactions to it constantly were great, and like Matt being like, "Oh yeah, I want to do that," and not knowing what it is, um, is so much good writing, and the the scene with Matt's sisters and Perrin showing him the drawing of Matt, that's ridiculous drawing of Matt, and they they each had a good liner of um now his name's gonna be Matt. What was it, Matt the bladder blower,
Oh yeah, something
and
like that. Yeah,
and the
yeah.
other sister's like sheep tutor. That was so good. We laughed at that a lot, but it felt like the writing was much better this season. They really are kind of like getting this world and making it very the kind of vibrant.
Yeah, I agree. It's got, well, like you said, it's got a lot of humor, which the books do have some humor, but it plays out
Mm,
differently when you have the added bonus of like visual humor because you can describe it in a
absolutely.
book, but you can't see it, so
Yeah.
it's a little bit different. So I do think it's great. I mean, this is probably a note I would say for my final ratings, but like the biggest compliment I could give them this season is we talked about earlier when we reviewed the seasons of this show that like it's based on a book series that just has like thousands of named characters that share
Literally, yeah.
space. And
Thousands.
the TV show now, I don't know the number, but I mean we must be up to like 100 plus named characters, I would have to think, and it
I
is
wouldn't doubt
doing a
that.
decent
Yeah,
job of of this season of like kind of juggling screen time and like you said, like Alana's a real character now, and like Elida's a big character. It's like these characters that either are brand new or we've seen, like they all seem to have a personality now. They all seem to have like a story that they're going through. The ones that are minor enough that we don't know a lot about them yet, like we still have an idea of who they are and like what maybe their major motivation is, if not like nuanced details about them. So that's my biggest compliment I could give them is it just felt like they did a great job at juggling all of these characters through the season,
agree very much. Yes.
except for Gaul, but we don't need to go there.
Rip call.
Oh,
We
sad.
never even knew ye. Um, another thing that I really enjoyed are the songs that we got in the series here in
Mhm.
this season. So, for those of you who haven't read the books, songs are a big part in the books. Like Robert Jordan actually went and like there's written lyrics for these songs in the books. Not like a whole song, obviously, like just like one verse, more
Yeah.
or less. But they're actually in the books. These lyrics are there, and to see, well, not see, but hear them brought to life in this show was really enjoyable, and they're good songs. Like they're really catchy.
Yeah.
And it was just the Hills of Tanchico song was that scene was so funny, and I mean also even like very awkward because you got half the cast just rubbing their breasts the the whole song, but it
Major
it
highlight. Major
yeah,
highlight.
it felt appropriate, and it fit. Like I think if you just like put that into a description, and you're like, hey, here's this scene where people are singing and half the cast is rubbing their boobs. And somebody would be like, what the fuck? The
Yeah,
fuck are you
right.
talking about? But in the moment, it felt like it worked, and it was very amusing. And look, Lane can actually sing. He's pretty darn
Yeah.
good. So, let's see what else I got here. One thing that definitely was on the negative side for me, or at least bothered me in the moment, and still kind of bothers me is like Samael was defeated like really easily. Like he basically just like attacks Rand, and then Rand just puts up a shield, and then just more or less snaps his fingers and like kills him. I mean, he's not. We find out that he's not dead. Dead. He's just knocked out.
Yeah.
But he did not put up a fight. And that bothered me a bit.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I
He
don't
was
know
supposed
if
to be
I.
like one of the most powerful people who ever lived.
Yeah. I don't know that I have this further down. I don't see it anyplace else, but there could be a Forsaken problem. I don't know. Like it is interesting because they condensed down to eight Forsaken from the book, of
Hmm.
which I think we've only heard seven of the names, is what I'm seeing so far. There's
That
a
sounds
male we
correct.
haven't heard
Yes.
of yet. It sounds like they're
Yeah.
speculating at least it's four male, four female.
Yeah.
But like
They've
the
named
female,
Grandal, but we haven't seen her.
yeah, the females have been awesome so far, and the males
Yep.
have been crap so far. So.
That's true.
I'm kind of intrigued what they're gonna do because like the Ishamael in the first season, and we do see him again here in some flashbacks, I think, in this season, at least once, right?
At least once, yes.
Was an interesting character, basically, but like served as like the first person he fights and then he's dead. And then yeah, like you said, Samael here is like defeated really easily, and it looked like to me they were going to, I mean, Moraine basically, in all but the words, says they're going to make him turn into Asmodean's character
Right.
from the
Like
novel, but
I,
no.
I was, yeah. I had that moment too. I was like, obviously, I knew that Asmodean wasn't. We weren't going to get him in the show, and so
Yeah,
when Moraine says, "Oh, you're going to teach Rand," I was like, "Oh, okay, that's fine. They can slip Samael into this role. That works for me as a way to condense things down." And then he gets very dead.
yeah, very dead. So I don't know. And we really at this point we have who Lanfear, Moghedien, and Robin left that we know about,
Yeah, we'll
and then
presumably get Grandal next season, and
and
then I assume we're gonna get Morden at some point. I have to believe
supposedly they said, how do you pronounce it? Samartaj?
Semarog
Samarag?
is how I they say in the audiobooks
The
anyway.
female, is that a girl?
Yep.
Yeah, so apparently someone's claiming we've seen that name so far somewhere. I don't know where or when that would have been, but they're saying those are the four female characters then.
They very early on in like the first season, someone is praying to some
Oh, okay.
like a collection of like idols or something. Idols isn't the correct word, but statues representing the Forsaken, and they're doing a prayer to like ward them off, and they say the name Semirad, I
Okay.
think. Yes.
And yeah, so then it's just the last guy that we don't have then, which
Yeah.
I mean it's just interesting because like Tom has also now kind of outed Lord Gabriel on the TV show as
Mm-hmm.
Robin, so like we know deeply three of the male Forsaken at this point,
Yep.
two of which are already dead, so it's like yeah, that's interesting because I don't know, and like one of my questions I had for the end tonight was like I don't know what the people producing this show are planning as like an end game for a series season count because are they attempting to fast track this so much in case they need to be done in like 5 seasons? But then if like they
Mm-hmm.
could go seven, like you can't also kill off all of the Forsaken and then be like, well, we just got renewed for two more guys. It
They
almost seemed like there was a point in this season where if they needed to, they're going to be like, well, we showed you like these eight Forsaken, but turns out there was this other place with some more.
I mean, there is I mean, you recall when if I remind you, but there is a way that they could expand things in the future if they needed to, and we can talk about that maybe in the next segment in the book the book spoilers
All right.
section. Um, but let me see here. Any other thoughts I had just in general? I definitely like I found it interesting that because I knew more or less what was coming, uh, it actually had me anticipating things. Like I had a greater sense of like being excited and anticipating these things coming, and it had me like on the edge of my seat more than I would have expected,
Hmm.
uh, given that I have the knowledge of what probably is going to happen.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's probably primarily due to my love of the series that I was just excited for these things to happen. But I also like there's a part of me that feels like that sensation I was getting was due to the way they produced the show as well. Like it just felt like it was done really well.
Yeah, I would have to think if you're a non-viewer, and I think, I don't know if this was in the same thing I was reading from Rafe that I was talking about earlier or not, but he said his estimate, at least in the quick notes in an interview, was that he thought 85% of the people watching would be people that have never read the books. Like that was just his guess estimate.
Mm,
So he's like, I have to write this for the 85, and then the
okay.
15 that have read, you can enjoy it in a totally different way, and you can be like sad or happy about this or whatever, but like I have to write it for the 85, not the 15. Um, so one of the, I will say, I don't know if this is a negative or not. There were times in this season where it has to do with pacing. I know that much. What I'm trying to say about the pacing, I'm not as positive. But
Mm,
there were times when they would like cut to like the next group of people and where they were at, what the story was, and they would do a little something, and then like it'd be like a real quick cut to like the next group that's over across the world doing this other thing. And there were times when I felt like it was a little too like soap opera CW, like old school, Days of Our Lives, where it was just like cut, 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 because those had like scenes where like somebody said like one sentence, they're like, oh my God, and then it would like cut to the next group of people and they would do something.
Okay, yeah.
And there was a sense of that for me a little bit in this season. I attribute it entirely to if them trying to shove as much stuff as they can into the episodes.
Sure.
I don't know what could be done about that. Like if they well, I will say this. If they had let the scenes even breathe just a little more than they did still, and had made it an hour and 10-minute episode, I don't know why that would have mattered. And we have continually harped on all of
Yep.
these streaming shows. Like, I don't know what the hard on is for a 60-minute show with credits. I don't get it.
True. I agree. I did I was very happy to see like the finale of this season was a 71-minute episode. So that was great to see, but I don't have the running times up in front of me, but I feel like they all were the rest of the episodes this season were all very close to that 1 hour mark, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it was. But I tell you what, I would rather it was this way where we jumped in with characters, something happened, there was an actual plot development, and then they left to the next group compared to season one, which, if you recall, was like, I don't even remember, Perrin and like Egwene running through a field, and then they cut away and come back, and it'd still be Perrin and Egwene running through a field. And it's like, Jesus Christ.
Yes. I remember moments like that the first season for sure. Yep. Um, I think the last thing I'll bring up just in general thoughts here. The very last moment that we get of the finale, we have a shot where Rand is doing this big weave. He's making it rain
Yeah.
on the desert, bringing water to this place that never sees water anywhere. And there's this moment where Egwene basically says, I don't know the exact wording, but he basically says, Rand, stop this. You have to stop what you're doing. And then we see him just kind of stare at her while continuing weaving, and then it just fade to black, essentially, and that's the end of the season.
Mm.
That probably was the singular most negative reaction I had to the entire season was that those like 4 seconds.
Mm.
It just I don't know what they were trying to do there. And it felt like an odd way to end like an episode like say episode 7. If it ended that way, I would have been like, okay, yeah, cool. But to end a season on that note left me wanting wondering what we're supposed to get from that.
Yeah. I mean, we could probably chat more about that in this other part, but like the
Yeah.
Egwene Rand relationship in the TV show is a unique beast. So
Yeah, it is. Yep. Um, I mean, I think I'm ready. If you want to, unless you got just general thoughts, if we want to move on to just
yeah,
quick
I'm
spoilers
I'm good to jump
with
in
Matt
here.
here. So again, just a warning for anybody who hasn't read the books and is worried about this episode here, this discussion, spoiling things that you're going to read at some point. Perhaps skip ahead 10-15 minutes ish, what we're going to do here, so you don't get spoiled. But I think it is important to talk about the compression of this story because we have 14 books they're trying to stuff into, as we recently said here, like we don't know how many seasons we're going to get. So
Yeah.
they definitely are compressing things down, combining characters, cutting out characters entirely, cutting out storylines. And so I think it's important to talk about what of those work and what don't work for us who have read the books. And I guess I'll just go ahead and make this point right off the bat here, because this is something that it took me a long time to really kind of accept this, because like that first season, I absolutely felt like I was seeing things that weren't in the story that I knew, and I did not like it.
Mm.
I was like, but this isn't the way it's supposed to be. Why is it like this? Uh, and it took me a long, and so I mean, I'll come back to a thought I just had in a moment here, but uh, it took me a long time to kind of realize that an adaptation doesn't have to be a one-to-one representation,
Right.
as long as it still evokes the same feelings that you're expecting. But you also, at least from my perspective, like you need to get like a bunch of like the defining moments of a story also need to happen. If you take away the moments that like define the story for you, well, then it's a completely different story. Whether the events that A, B, and C, as long as it still gets to D, I'm I think I'm at a point where I'm okay with that. That I
Yeah.
still get to see the moment that I'm expecting overall.
I think it's to that same point, I believe. I don't know, trying to remember because like I've trying to think of what I've read that has been adapted into like a long form storytelling visual thing, like The Hobbit. I've never read Lord of the Rings technically, but like The Hobbit I've
Yeah,
read.
me neither, unfortunately.
Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of other things that I've read. There must be some, but like I don't think I realized how talented it would make you to be able to take anybody's work on anything and like rip it apart and pull pieces out and like reconnect threads in different spots. Um, and the fact that somebody is attempting to do that with this series for as large as it is, I mean,
Mm.
what do we figure here? Like a little less than 10,000 pages probably total, or maybe right around 10,000.
Yes, I did. I At some point I wrote that down, and I
Yeah.
think it is over 10,000.
Yeah, it probably is if it's 14 books. So to just have like the complexities of what's happening and be able to rearrange some elements and take things out and reconnect some pieces here, make this character storyline a little different here, make this relationship a little bit different here, change this. I have to say I'm super impressed with what they have been able to do while moving pieces around. Now we can definitely talk about, the pieces they've moved around.
Hmm.
Um, but I do think it's very impressive. Like I never read the books from George R. R. Martin from Game of Thrones when I watched that series. I know many people had, and then he kind of gave up and whatever.
Yeah,
But that must have been the same thing of like this isn't exactly how this played out, and those were
yeah,
massive books with
absolutely.
complex relationships too. And so I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is this season, and especially on the up ramp, because the first season was a little rough. Second
Mhm.
season was much better, and this season's also very good. So I feel like at this point, I'm kind of with you where I'm going to give them the pass of like, it seems like they know what they're doing, and it's going to get to where it needs to go.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah. Um, it, the season was just very different also in the fact that the events that they gave us in this season actually kept very close to the events of the books, which was not very much was not the case uh in season one, I would say. And season two was kind of in between, but also still not the same as book two. But it feels like they have given us a lot of the major moments of book four here in this season, which really made me just excited because I was finally seeing things that I wanted and expected to see, and I was excited. Like, like especially like I mentioned the red doorway scene, and
Yeah.
like when I saw that, my first thought was I get to experience this with my wife. I get to explain this to her, and like she gets to experience it, and like we get to talk about it because I love this scene. You know, um, so for me as a book reader, the fact that they gave us so much of book four kind of straight out of where off the pages, uh, was a really great insight change for me.
So I wanted to ask because again, I just don't remember like the books reference like the Age of Legend and like these prior times so frequently. But when Rand was like going through the ancestors in Ruidian and he was like in that one where there was like floating spaceship orbs and stuff and I happening, I was like, is this in the book? Like nothing like this is described, is it?
No, not specifically like yeah, like I say that the floating like almost like a shiny Death Star.
That seemed really I was that I mean maybe of all the scenes in this season that was the one that like intrigued me the most because I was like this is a like clear fantasy book and like that was a hardcore like science fiction element like it was
Yes.
really weird.
It was, yeah, it kind of like caught me off guard as well. I was like, oh, that's something really interesting to see. Um, and my further thoughts on that are, so they describe it in the books as when they essentially release the Dark One, when they bore into his prison, they use the word bore specifically quite a bit, and it always, in listening to the audiobooks, it always gave me the sense that they were drilling into the ground, and that's where they found him. But it seems to me, I think what they've given us, they didn't spell it out, but I think what they've given us is that sphere was like as basically like a science station, and that's where they were breaking through into his prison, was like kind of in the middle of the air, and they
Hmm.
built this thing around it to do the job.
It was a really it didn't look like property
Yeah,
specifically, but
I can give that. Yeah.
also made me just really intrigued because many of these fantasy books also, whether it's like this or like I have one book left in the expanded Mistborn series or like Dune or like there's all these fantasy properties where they reference, like in the olden days, we used to have like this technology like you wouldn't believe, or like we found this archaeological dig of like this thing that we used to have, and we just lost how to do it. We don't remember how to do that anymore. And like when
Right.
I saw that, I was like, holy shit, like what else did they have back then? Because good Lord.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, uh, I was saying, like, a lot of those cases, like what you just referenced, they like to allude to those things and reference them, but they never really describe them. And yeah, to see something that we've spent 2.5 seasons in like a very medieval
Yes.
looking world, and to see something that is like massively futuristic for for ourselves, was a very big contrast. And but I enjoyed to see it.
Yeah, the technology of just like that plus Maureen Straw Hat, I was like, what are we doing here? It's crazy.
uh I so one of the things that they changed that I'd like to point out, I, so this is the kind of thing where like they made a change to the books that I don't understand. And that the one I'm going to talk about here is Fail gave the backstory about her mother being a dark friend,
Hmm.
and so she had to flee because her mother was going to kill her. That is not in the books, and I I I don't understand why they made that writing choice when they could have just. I feel like they could have just used the story from the books where uh, where her brothers died, and so she was essentially defaulted to like run the household, and she's like, I don't want to be a housewife. I want to go out and adventure, and so she runs away. Like that would have fit the character that we got just as well. Why make her mother a dark friend when she's not a dark friend in the book?
Yeah, I don't know. That seems like another of like how they had Perrin have the wife that died to start the show. Like it's there for character trauma and for no other reason.
Yeah, yeah, you're probably right. It's just it's something to make you give the character a reason to have like an edge, the things they do, or I
Yeah, I
don't
don't know.
know.
I thought she was gonna. Well, I don't think she really in the TV show. She didn't really let slip officially who her dad was, did
Not yet.
she?
No,
Yeah.
not by
So
name.
be curious how that comes out in the TV show if it plays out
Mm.
exactly the same, because who knows?
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Um.
what did you think about the? I mean, to me, this was a huge moment I was thinking of from the books when the fight started, but Moraine and Lanfear, how that played out in the show. I kind of assumed that somehow they were both gonna go through like a portal, and that was gonna be the last we saw of either of them, which
That
one of them does go through a portal of their own making, though.
true. 100%. I believed that they had set it up perfectly so that both of them would yeah, go, they don't have the stone door frame like they do in the books, that like it wasn't available to them. But I thought, oh, well, okay, they're going to substitute something, and we're going to lose both of these characters as we do in the books.
Yeah.
And they set it up perfectly for that. Like, we know that Moraine is going to die by her own visions, and um, it was set up perfectly, and they didn't do it, and that did catch me off guard a bit. But I also like, it's a kind of thing where you've got your biggest star actress. Can you just have her off the show for 2 or 3 seasons? I don't think you can. So,
That's an interesting point.
I because obviously I don't know the exact
Hmm.
number. It would have to be, well, let's see. It's very, very close to the end. Like in the books, we get Moraine back in like book 12 or 13, and she dies in book 5. So she's gone for like 8 books at least.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can do that on this show. So
Huh.
I understand it, but they also like, it's like setting it up and then not doing it
Yeah, it
was
was really strange. I guess I don't know. I hadn't thought about it from like the actress, how well you would know the person. It is weird. Like I do agree with you, she's probably the most known person in this show, and yet I also feel like she's not that well known. Like she's not an A-lister, I don't feel like, in
true.
Hollywood, but yeah, probably the most known in this show. I really thought that's somehow it was going to play out, and then obviously like there was no door, but then I was like, well, somebody will open a portal and they'll go through the portal or something, and then like when she when that was a pretty cool fight, but also I
It
was
was,
like, wait a
yeah.
second, what's going on here? Like Moraine pulls a sword out of her stomach. And I was like, she's dead, right? No, she's like getting her second wind, and then like when she slashed Lanfear in like the throat and like the blood all sprayed,
Oh
and I
God,
was like,
she's
oh
dead.
shit, she's dead too. Yeah, I was like, well, honestly, I thought they're both dead. Like
Yeah.
that's how I thought they did it, was they're both dead, and then Lanfear like fell through her portal, presumably. I'm sure she's alive, and then
Mhm.
so this is actually funny. I thought Moraine died. And then actually earlier today, like pulled up the last episode again. I was like, why is everyone like not saying that she's dead? And then I like rewatched it and I was like, oh, Lan has her in his arms, and then he's like walking away with her. So I guess she is not dead. But for some reason, when I watched it, I thought she died there, which was weird. I was like, wow, they're killing everybody in this last episode, but
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
I guess not.
You got a sword through the gut. It's hard to see because there's no one else nearby. It's hard to
Right.
see Moraine living from that, but like 99% sure that she's going to be back for, at the start of season 4,
Yeah.
you know. Uh, another one thing that caught me off guard, and I don't understand where they're going with it. So we see, Matt go and meet the eel fin, which was awesome. Um, I loved everything about that, except for them taking his knowledge, wherein the books they give him his knowledge.
Hmm.
And I I really don't know where they're gonna where I don't know where Matt's gonna go from here, because what makes Matt so interesting in the books from like that point on is that he is the guy says all this knowledge of battle and like is the most brilliant general on the planet at this point, because he
Hmm.
understands warfare, and now he doesn't have any of that. So I'm really curious what they're doing there.
That is a good point because now he's basically nerfed where he has lost his battle knowledge. Presumably, he doesn't know how to speak the old tongue anymore.
Right.
And they also don't really have the like Ruby Dagger thing that could have dragged out longer than it did in the TV show. So yeah, he's basically just like normal Matt, like he was when he started now.
Yeah. Yeah. And um I made note of because I was very excitedly telling my wife about the gifts that he got from the Eofin, including they don't make a big deal about it, but it is there, and
Yeah.
he's hanging from the Ashendara. Like it's stabbed through the top of the door frame, and he's hanging from it. So he's got his weapon, but he's not gonna know how to use it.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure what good that does him now.
Yeah. Well, he got his necklace, at least if nothing else.
True. Yeah. We'll see.
Um, yeah, that was it's a good question. I don't know.
Mm. In the same thought process, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but just where they're going with Perrin being taken when that's not in the books either. I kind of assume that very early in season 4 we'll see him get rescued by someone. Maybe Elias and the Wolves rescue him again. Um, but if they do, then why let him get taken in the first place?
Yeah, I could see him like talking his way out of it and getting out himself, but then again, like why take him to begin with?
Yeah, that's something that could have done without him being a prisoner. So another interesting non-book canon choice. Um, I guess let's. I mean, we definitely we have some deaths to talk about here.
Yeah.
Some premature deaths. This is probably like the biggest changes from the books that we'll be talking about here. Um, and some very very big and important characters lost. And I guess I'll make just this point right off the bat here, I suppose. So this was also in the episode where we lose Loyal, episode 7. Uh, in the extras for that episode, like Rafe addresses that decision, and the more I listen to him talk about it, I think the more I agree with it, and so I'll be interested to see how you feel about it. But uh, essentially, his thought was there's so much story and so many characters that they can't do them all justice. They just cannot. Um, and so when you have this performance, the kind of like a really great performance or a great actor or actress, um, and you're not utilizing them perhaps to where they could be, essentially what they're doing is getting a character like set and getting the most they can out of them, and then sending them off in a blaze of glory.
Hmm.
um and that is a better, you're doing the character more justice by sending them off prematurely than you are by having them be a C level character who's not getting represented properly.
So he confirmed then that Loyal is gone.
He didn't straight up say Loyal is dead,
Yeah.
but very much the way that he worded things was Loyal's dead.
Okay. Yeah, because I didn't. I mean, I don't know that well, in the books, we see the waves, many times, but I don't know. Because when I watched the scene and he like fell, I was like, is that it? Like he's guaranteed to be dead, or like could he somehow get out of that?
The ways are so weird, and even the characters themselves don't understand the plays.
Yeah.
There is, I allow a small percentage chance that he's still alive. Maybe he'll be Moraine. Maybe
Yeah, I
he'll
was
come
just
back
thinking that, but
towards the end of the series.
to what end? Like they get to a Waygate much later in the show, and then like the door magically opens from the other side, and Loyal steps out.
I
Like
maybe
I don't know.
maybe
Yeah.
but that the we definitely thought like he was going to break the bridge and the bridge was going to break and then he'd just be free to walk out the door. you know, we didn't think he was going to fall
Yeah, I wondered how
to
that
his
was
death.
supposed to play out too, because he seemed like he was attempting to like break the frame of the door, but he was having
Mm,
no luck with that. So I was like, does he? I mean, he probably doesn't know like how to do that successfully, so he's just trying to improvise.
yeah.
But
It was an amazing scene either way. It was
yes,
very moving and had a lot of emotion behind it. Um, a very good send off if that is our last moment with him.
yeah, and we do get they find his book afterwards. Like that was a nice touch follow up as well of like him writing about the story about Perrin and
Mm,
so yeah, if that is it, then a major character that is
yeah,
gone. But again, like as major as he is, he's not like one of the top 10, so that you could make the
right.
argument.
That's the thing. He's not. He definitely has very important parts in the story, but he's
Hmm.
not an integral part of the story.
Yes, true.
Though, I would not doubt if he's one of the top five or so favorite characters that people have. Perhaps. I mean, I love him in the books.
Yeah,
He's
there
an
is
amazing
that.
character. So I think his performance. I don't have the actor's name in front of me here, but uh, he really did make it feel like loyal. It was a great performance and a very
Yeah.
fun character all the way. Everything we saw of him was fun.
Agreed. Agreed.
Um, in a similar fashion, a premature send off. We have Swan.
Yeah. Whoa.
I think we can confirm she's dead
I
since
didn't see that coming. I
her
mean,
head is separated. Yeah, I just thought, okay, well, they're gonna still her, they're gonna imprison her like they do in the books, and
yeah.
you know, um, but again, this is when Rafe addressed specifically was you like that actress. They felt like she was such a good actress that they needed to give her like another really moving emotional performance in their final scene and like it was a great scene. I think it fits the way everything fit together was great, but just another like she lives all the way through the series in the books, so to lose
Mm.
her here is very premature.
Yeah, she's one where I could definitely see like her role past being the Amerlin seat probably is a character they could have removed off the chessboard if they need to. I mean, I feel like in some ways the speech that she gives the sisters, even though they essentially are partially the ones who kill her, like
Right.
that speech she gives is essentially the essence of kind of like what she works towards. I feel like partially in the book the rest of her days. Which is like
Yeah.
it's not your power that makes you who you are. It's like the choices you make, and it's like how you live your life. And so I could see her coming off. Well, that was doubly why I was like, shit, they killed her, and then they turn around and kill Maureen right after that. Good Lord.
Mm.
Um,
Right.
but now I guess presumably Maureen's gonna have to live with that loss as well. So
Right. Um, and another one we talked about a bit earlier, but Samael, doesn't survive through the books, all the way, but survives a lot longer than he does here. And
yeah,
I again we talked about how we thought he was going to be unwillingly Rand's teacher, and that would have fit the stories,
Yeah.
fit the books. But they just and not we definitely have to talk about his death there, because it was so visually just, I mean, gruesome, but just
It
awesome, because
was.
they continuously work in these spider web like uh visuals into things Moghedien does. And I feel like
Mm.
that it's so, they do such an awesome job of doing that.
Yeah. Agreed. Pretty sweet.
Yeah.
What did you think of the moment when Elaine and Avienda start bumpa chicka bang chick bang chick bang chick bang chick?
That caught me off guard.
No doubt.
Um
What?
I they keep they keep making me doubt where they are going with the romance situations. Um so
Yeah, that's what I
we
want to talk about. Let's talk about it.
I so at when the let's go back to like season one, I thought for sure they were going to be like, well, Rand having three wives is too much for, even though our the audience in our current day and age is getting much more okay with things that aren't the norm. Still having three wives probably is more than the audience can really handle, so
Yeah.
they're probably going to do away with it. But then they gave us the line, Min says that in Rand's future she sees three beautiful women, and I was like, oh, they're going to do it maybe.
Mm.
um and then at the end of season two, Rand, he's like dying, and he looks up, and Elaine heals him, and he like has this angelic moment where he sees her and he's like, "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." And then we get into season three, and they're like just friends, and I was like, "Wait, what?" So they're not gonna be romantically involved, and then it's Elaine and Avienne, and I was like, "Well, hold on now." You're gonna put those together. Why didn't you put Elaine and Rand together?
Yeah.
And now I don't know. I'm very lost in that whole situation. I don't know if you have any
It,
insight more than I do.
no, I just first I noted, when Elaine and Avienda, I forget, Avienda said something to Elaine or something, and then Elaine was like, "Yes, finally," or something like that. I was like, "Oh
Right.
shit, what's going
Yeah.
on here?" And this was like, semi hot on the heels of the Swan Moraine kind of relationship from season one that we were like, "Wait, what? What's happening now? Who's what
Yeah.
now? What? No, I am the Amerlin." And then in this one, like they've taken this some different places, which, yeah, I'm with you. I'm intrigued with this because in this season, we saw essentially Egwene and Avienda, unless they're going to do something really weird here, go off the board at the moment, at least for Ran. Min seems to not be an angle that's happening in any way,
Yeah.
shape, or form, unless it's
Seems
with
like,
Matt. I don't know what's
yep.
going on there. And then he also like ended this prolonged relationship he has with Egwene, which seemed to run longer than the like book relationship
Yep.
did,
Much
but
longer.
also cut his tie with Lanfear in this season as well.
Which wasn't a thing in the books either.
So I'm like, all right, so he's got five ladies there, none of which he is now linked to.
Yep. And none of them seem to want anything to do with him either.
Yeah, so like I don't know where this is. I mean, they could be bold and not have a romance story at all, I guess, for him, but
Maybe.
that would lose a little of his complexity, but it's
Yeah.
not, that like to be the dragon doesn't necessarily mean you have to have that.
Yeah. In it very much so, like all those relationships he has in the books uh help drive him to be the man he has to be at the end of the series. You know, um like Min teaches him how to love essentially, and Avienda teaches him how to be strong, and Elaine teaches him how to be a king and to be a leader. And at this point, he's not going to get any of that from them, I guess. I don't know. And on top of that, not just what he learns from them, but I feel like they're very well written, just romantic relationships in the books.
Yeah.
Like, there's very touching moments, and there's very like real relationship issues that people go through, um and to not get any of that does feel like it would be a loss to me.
There's not like, I mean, at this exact moment, even with your weird end of season shot, like it's still feels like Egwene is the best option in the TV show for him.
Yeah.
But then does that mean like the whole Elaine's brothers plots are like not going to happen either with like relationship? Like I don't know.
Yeah,
They were also in that one little clip, and then that was really it for them too, though. So
that's true. Yeah, that's a thing to consider, because they gave us Gawain. I was like, okay, well, they're gonna eventually Gawain and Egwene get together like they do in the books, but we only get Gawain and Galad for basically a couple episodes,
yeah,
and I mean, presumably they'll, when we get back into season 4 and we get into the whole situation with Ravine, they'll probably be there in some capacity, but
yeah.
they don't seem to be doing the what they were doing in the books.
I mean, the
Like they're
only
not.
person that's like not spoken for would be Min, but she seems to be a little bit with Matt at the moment. But then Matt in the
Yeah,
books obviously has his whole storyline he goes down as well, which I don't know if that'll even happen in the TV show.
very hard to say at this point.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a weird one. They're gonna. I don't know. I don't know
Do
who
we
else.
have any? I'm trying to think if we have any romantic relationships that are true to the books at the moment.
Oh, Lan and Moraine or Lan and Nynaeve,
True, true. Yep,
I guess.
that's a big one.
But past that, I'm not so sure. What if Rand ends up with Elaine's mom? Oh, that would be a twist. There it is.
That would be a twist,
Rand
since
and
that's like,
Moghedien calling it
because
now.
wait, I have to think about these relationships. So that it would be well, no, they're not blood relation. That would be like, so it would be his mom is the cousin of Elaine's father, if I'm remembering that right.
I don't know. Shrug.
I'd
Shrug.
have to go look at that family tree closer, but
Yeah, Min and
there
Matt,
might be some
maybe.
issues.
I don't know. Or maybe
Yeah.
Matt will get the whole plotline he gets in the books as well. I don't know. That'd be another character if they get Tuon in there that's like very like Fael. Like it would take a certain person to make that role perfect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Agreed.
What else do we got for story changes
Um,
or book compression here?
well, we've got uh it was interesting because they, so we in the books, Perrin's whole family dies. Podunfan kills his whole family. And in this version, his whole family is saved and living somewhere. They just are taken away to
Hmm.
safety. But then Matt's mother dies, and she doesn't die in the books. So like they swap one for
Boy,
the
did
other.
she.
Yeah, that was
That's probably the
I
second most gruesome death of the season.
I very much appreciated that they gave her a bit of redemption, though, because like seeing her as just like a drunk kind of wasting of a person in the first season didn't feel good, because that's not how
Yeah.
she's written. To see her stand up and be a pretty good mom to the girls in the end was good to see. But oh man, yeah,
I
another
did also enjoy it was a deep cut, but when they found the older lady in the village that could channel that helped the two girls and Alana.
days. Yep.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, like those families are like the shit families in the book, I feel like for the
Yeah,
most
they
part.
are.
So,
Yeah.
and I think we watched almost every episode except maybe the first with captions on it. And so it would be like Conger, and I was like, what? Oh man, look at that right there. So that's
Yeah, that was. she certainly isn't. That's another one who she dies here in the show, and she doesn't. I don't. I mean, I don't remember exactly her fate in the books, but she
Yeah.
definitely doesn't die in that battle. Um, but yeah, another one where I mean, we definitely don't get all of her backstory to where she's this big, huge pain in the ass all the time. But to have her have, she got her own big moment. That was cool. That
Yeah.
was pretty cool to see. So
I think again, been a while for the books on me, but I think Lord Luke was reduced considerably in this, was he not?
yes, um, perhaps they'll give him much more to do in the next season. But yeah, he was very reduced from his book plot.
It looked like he was going to have more to do in the show, and then they were like, "Oh, like Lord Luke's running things now," and then we don't see him again. I was like,
Yep, he just
"Okay,
disappears.
sounds good."
Yep. Um, you were questioning about the Forsaken all dying off rapidly. Um, and I mentioned what they could do because we have at least let's see, one, two, three, four, at least four that I can remember right now. Four of the Forsaken get resurrected in the books. Um, so that is something they could do if they needed someone to
Mm,
come back and be a an antagonist, is possibly resurrect one of those. I mean, one of those is Ashamiel comes back in the books as Moradin.
hmm
So I would not be surprised if that happens. Um, but I kind of agree with you, like that I think they don't know what the full path is for the show
Yeah,
because
it's got to be hard.
they don't know how many seasons they're going to get. They haven't been guaranteed anything. We still haven't. We definitely. I want to talk about this briefly at the end, but they still have not greenlit season four. Um, so no one knows what's going to happen. But um, I think you might be onto something there, where they're kind of trying to play it in a way where they can wrap it up in like two more seasons if they need to, or they would possibly have options to go extended if they were that fortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I guess now that I think about it, like they've had two Forsaken die in 3 seasons. So as much as I'm bitching about it, I guess it's not really that big of a problem.
Yeah,
And the
that's
one
true.
and the one that was killed in this season wasn't even by a hero, so
That's true.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I did kind of like that. I was kind of like, because in the books they always say like they're playing off each other and like
Yeah,
trying
they're
to
like
one up
always
each
fighting each
other.
other. Yeah.
But this was straight up like, I'm just gonna murder you. One less Forsaken. There we go.
Yeah. Um, I think that's basically all I have for how the
Yeah,
story's been compressed, I think. So if you're good at that,
good on
I
my
think we
end.
can let's move into our ratings for this.
Right.
And then what I want to do is that after we do our ratings, I want to talk about potential season four. So we'll have that be the closing.
Okay.
Um, but I did go back and just double checked what we had for seasons one and two for each of us.
Oh, okay.
Um, just so we had a baseline. So for season one, I gave it a 7.0. You had 7.5, and Justin had 7.0. Season two, I had 9.25. You had 9, and Justin had 8. So considerably better scores across the board. That is 7.2 and 8.75 in total there for those seasons. So, um, you want me to go first, or do you want to go first on this?
Doesn't matter. I can go first. I'm happy you told me those numbers. I'm trying to not let them influence my number now. I'm like changing and changing and changing. Um, no,
I can
I can
go if you
go.
want to think about it.
No, it's fine. I can go.
Okay.
I liked a lot about this. I did think there was more, and we mostly were able to binge like the first 5 or 6, I would say, just timing wise, how this played out for us. And then the last one or two, we were like, we had to wait for them until they came out. But It felt like there was still a little bit of time towards the earlier part of this season, not the opening scene, obviously, but there were some moments that were a little slower still towards the beginning that, even if they weren't really slow, like just didn't grab me as much as some of the stuff towards later in the season. Highlights for me again, definitely the Battle of the Two Rivers was just awesome, and I enjoyed a lot of the Rudy and stuff. The characters, again, you'll be mentioned a couple times already, but just fantastic juggling of characters so far in this show, particularly this season, where their character count's getting pretty high. And I do appreciate that they're putting some characters from the books as like background characters, even if they're only there for just a little bit. Like Days Conger is a
Mm,
good example, right? Like, why did that
sure.
character need to be in the show? She didn't, but she was, and it was fun.
Yep.
Um, so I liked a lot about this. I think I could probably best relay my thoughts on this season by giving you this countdown of the top 6 things I'm jealous of from season 3 of The Wheel of Time. Here we go. Starting at number 6, jealous of the way Leanne grips her staff and slams her staff over and over as the Keeper of Chronicles.
Oh my.
Yes.
Yes. Staff
Number
for breath.
5, jealous of how easily Moghedien gets Nynaeve to do whatever she wants.
She's the only one that gets that.
True.
She's pretty
Number
stubborn with her
4,
ways.
jealous of Perrin getting straddled by Fael. Just putting that out there. Number 3, jealous that I did not get to see Elaine sing about the hills of Tanchico live.
Yes.
Number 2, jealous of Loyal playing Maiden's Kiss with Chiad.
Oh my, yes.
Just putting that out there. And the
He
number
play, he
one
played that
thing,
game wrong. He played that to lose. That
I
was
know, right?
disservice to himself.
Yeah, no doubt. And the number one thing I was jealous of in season 3 of The Wheel of Time, Moraine getting choked by Lanfear.
Very nice.
Give
Yes.
me a ring, Natasha O'Keefe. I'm still here. All right. Yes, all of which is say I'm pretty close to where I was last season. I'm going to give this one a grand spanking total of 8.96.
I like it.
Yeah.
Very nice. Uh, I mean, it's impossible for me to kind of view anything around this show just completely objectively. Um, there just isn't any way for me to like completely separate myself from my love for this property. Uh, and like in previous seasons, I had many moments where I kind of was I felt where I was left like wanting or like even like really in doubt about the show's direction or what they were doing or is this is this am I enjoying watching this even at some point. uh there were times where it just I didn't feel good about the show, and those feelings did not exist for me this season. Other than a handful of times where we talked about all those briefly where I questioned like an event and like how it played out or like not understanding where that plot is going. Other than that, I mean, I was glued to like every minute of this season. Uh, and I think maybe my biggest criticism overall is just simply that there were moments that felt like they could have been fleshed out more. Um, there was things where like there were moments where I felt like I needed to explain something to my wife. Though in many cases she did pick up on those herself. So perhaps it's better written than I was maybe giving it credit for.
Mm,
Maybe they were getting those points across, even though they weren't explicitly spelled out. But I think it's that's just always going to be the case with the show. If they're only going to give us 8 episodes per season, and they're only going to do an hour per episode, it's just always going to be the case. There's just too much story to tell,
yeah.
so things are not going to feel completely fleshed out. But um, I I had very few complaints, almost none, and I had many things to cheer about this season. I think I'm going to go ahead and do a personal first for me on this podcast.
Uh-oh.
This is a perfect 10 out of 10 for me.
Wow.
I don't think I could have asked for more. I loved this season, and it is, I mean, to me personally, I can't fathom how they would not do a season 4 of this show.
You heard it here first. Brett loves when everyone's a lesbian.
I did not say that. So let's get in this to finish off this episode here. Will we get season 4? I mean, I think we just answered the question, should we get a season 4?
Yeah.
As we both gave this a very high rating and had many glowing things to say about it. I absolutely feel like they have kind of mastered what this show should be and how to put it on screen. It's just a wonderful job this season. But will we get season 4? So I did go and just look around a bit, get some data as much as I could. And so it apparently here. So we had the very first episode of the season 1, episode 1, apparently had like over 1 million streaming minutes.
Okay.
And like very consistently since then, every episode has gotten somewhere around like 500 million minutes streamed, pretty consistently, apparently. And this season in particular, every single episode, for the week that it was released, that episode was in the top 10 of all streamed shows. Including, I was just looking here on the Nielsen top 10 right here for streamed television shows. It's currently 7th. So it seems like the viewership for this season has been quite good. As I say, that it's currently it's 7th in streaming TV right now, behind Adolescence and The Residents, which are Netflix properties, Reacher, Severance, 1923, which is on Paramount Plus. I've never heard of it, and Temptation Island, which is
Of course.
on Netflix, of course.
Okay, so
But
that was the question I was going to ask. You're saying 7th overall, not on Amazon.
yeah, 7th overall.
Okay.
Yeah. So that seems pretty good to me. And it I did pull up this article here where that the title was Wheel Time Season 3 defeats Rings of Power with higher critic and audience scores. So I initially had to open that up. And like it's nowhere even like like Rings of Power is at like 40% approval rating right now. Would you like to take a guess at as Rotten Tomatoes is our traditional benchmark for things? Would you like to take a guess on where it sits at Rotten Tomatoes right now for season 3?
I think I peaked earlier, so I think
Okay.
it was at like a 98, 99. It was really high for critics.
Yeah,
It was also very high for
97% for critics,
97.
83 for viewers, which is also pretty darn high.
I did note the critics was slightly higher than the Glenn Powell classic Hitman.
Finally dethroned.
That's right, fucker.
Now our benchmark now is Wheel of Time season 3.
Also, 1923 is apparently a show starring Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren.
Oh, that's a good cast.
So
Okay.
there we go.
That explains why people are watching it. All that to say, it seems to me like viewership numbers for this season are pretty darn good. Whether or not Amazon feels like it is good enough to justify the cost that they're throwing at this, and I don't, right off the top of my head, I don't know how it compares money wise to other things they have. Obviously, it's nowhere near Rings of Power because that's a $1 billion show, literally. Uh, but I know it's got to be pretty high up there for production costs. So whether or not they think it's worth the numbers that are getting, I honestly can't say. Um, I did see one comment on a Reddit post that suggested that the reason why they have not greenlit season 4 is due to some sort of licensing or contracting thing between Amazon and Sony, and that's the holdup that they need to sort out what's going on there.
Is it a Sony produced show?
Yes,
Oh,
right off the top of my head, I don't know how all that works, but yeah, it's an Amazon and Sony like co-production.
okay. I don't think I
Yeah,
realized that.
yeah. I would have to look into that further to see exactly how that all works out. But I know they definitely it's stated somewhere in something I read. So, um, but I mean, I guess what kind of thoughts do you have on a potential season 4?
Obviously, I would want one to happen here. I'm just
Sure.
looking.
Yeah.
This is so a few weeks ago on finance.yahoo. I don't know if you saw this. It says Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power has generated 367 million in subscriber revenue. The Wheel of Time has brought in 360 million in revenue, but that was with, I mean, like 4 episodes to go yet on this
Okay.
season. So it seems like they're making more off of this. I mean, there's no doubt that this is the better TV show of the two.
Absolutely.
I,
That
I,
yeah.
as you know, we talked about this before, I think, but like as famous as the Wheel of Time is, it is obviously nowhere near as famous
Yeah.
as the Lord of the Rings.
Even still nowhere near. Yeah.
So part of it is probably like the amount they paid to get the rights to Lord of the Rings. They probably want to continue to push that series as much as they can. Um, but this one seems to be slightly cheaper and also bringing in as much money. So I would think they would keep it up, but we're in the world of streaming nowadays, so who the hell knows, you know? Nothing's
Yeah.
guaranteed.
I mean I feel like it's much more common with Netflix, or at least I have seen it much more often with Netflix because I would say that's the thing we watch the most is Netflix. So we see more shows on there and then poof, they're gone, even though we
Yeah.
were enjoying them. And it seems to be this crazy epidemic, especially in streaming these days, where these companies somehow think that they're going to replace a show with something that's going to magically have a much better viewership, and they just keep recycling things, just keep dumping things and bringing something else new in, and that doesn't perform what they want, and so they dump that one. And so honestly, despite how amazing I thought this season was, I have real doubts whether we're going to get any more seasons of this.
Really?
um I the like I haven't I've heard so there's a YouTuber I watch occasionally who seems to be in the know, has some kind of insider information. Um, that's the What Up channel. For those of you curious, he I haven't watched those episodes yet because I've been kind of fully invested in just watching the show, and then I'll go back and listen to what he has to say afterwards. But um, apparently, he has heard that Amazon is very happy, quote, very happy with the performance of the show.
Okay.
So, um, that I mean that is a definitely very like reassuring thing. But I mean I have doubts because streaming is it seems so unpredictable lately.
Yeah, for sure. The same. This is the same article I was just looking at further down. They have it broken down by each of the streaming providers, what percentage of their shows are fantasy versus what percentage their revenue comes from fantasies. This is kind of
Mm.
interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting metric.
So they have Prime at 7% of their catalog is considered fantasy. I don't know how the hell they're measuring that, but it's pulling in 10.2% of their revenue.
Okay.
So
So it's
that's good.
performing better, yeah.
Yeah. Disney, this is where it's weird. They got Disney Plus at like 6.7% of its stuff is fantasy, but 13% of its revenue is
Mm.
fantasy. But I wonder if that's counting like Marvel or Star Wars. Like, I don't know how that.
Ah,
Max
okay.
is the weird one. Max only has 2.8% of its catalog as fantasy, but 10.5% of its money they're bringing in is off of fantasy. So again, I don't know what's
Interesting.
included in these.
Yeah. Huh. Game of Thrones, I suppose.
Oh yeah, Game of Thrones, it says.
Yeah.
Wow, they're counting True Blood. True Blood. Okay, True Blood. I thought that was True Detective. True Blood. And His Dark Materials, other big ones there. And
Okay.
then it says Harry Potter is about to get their full-fledged too, so that's gonna
Right.
go off the scales here pretty quickly. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I would hope that this happens again. I mean, it's I will say it's tough though because when I talk to people about this show, like even at work, they're like, "No, like I'm not watching that. I didn't try to watch that." And it's like, how can I get you to try to watch this? And I don't know.
Yeah, I mean I in my understanding I mean it's just how most all shows work. I think especially something that's very story driven. It's not like a comedy. Like you can't you can just jump into any episode of Friends and start watching it anywhere,
Sure, yeah,
basically, and enjoy it. And here you can't start watching season three without having watched season one and two. So the viewership numbers, in theory, are always going to go down for a show like this. Like every season is going to have less viewers in theory because you're going to have people dropping off, deciding they're not going to continue for some reason, whatever reason they have personally.
right.
And to get somebody to start in the once you're already three seasons deep could be a big ask for people. So I I would have to believe that people who are running this stuff understand that, but but I don't believe that they necessarily look at that and say, oh well, that's just how it is. That's okay. They're going to be like, well, you didn't, your numbers dropped, you're out of here.
Yeah, it is a big ask. I mean, it's only 24 episodes, but it is a big ask at an hour an episode for them to be like, "Hey, new viewer, like, come check out this show and get invested in it before we would do a season four." Like, that's a pretty big investment still.
Hmm.
Even though it's not like, like we're also slowly plodding through watching Lost with the kids, and that's like, whatever, 100 episodes at an hour piece, and it's like it's not
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
it is a lot still to have somebody come in and try to pick up on this. But it sounds like the streaming views are okay, slash good. So one can hope. I don't know. I feel like if it didn't have the name, obviously, if the Lord of the Rings would be the show that would be canceled of these two. Should
Hmm.
be canceled of these
It
two
should be.
still, but it's just got the name. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
It's not great.
Um,
It's not great.
it is not. Um, I really I don't know how the licensing is arranged. I know that the Wheel of Time in its past has had many licensing issues, which kept it from becoming a show in the past.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how easy it would be if, for example, Amazon says, no, we're not buying another season. Would someone else pick it up? Could they pick it up? Is the contract, would it allow that? I have no idea. I cannot answer that, but um,
I wondered
I
that too. I just
I
don't
hope
think
that
it,
that's a possibility, at least.
I don't know how that would. Yeah, that would raise so many questions. It'd be so hard.
Mhm.
It'd be so hard when you think of like a show that's all set piece driven and on scene, on location. Like that'd be. It's one thing if you're doing like a sitcom on a house and you just buy the house and you're like, let's just keep it going, you know.
Yeah.
I always, when you said that, I always am reminded of my 60s Batman TV show that I loved that ran for 3 seasons on ABC, and then NBC called and they were like, you know what, we're gonna do season 4, and ABC was like, we just tore down the Batcave, and they were like, well, we're out then. Like that's all that prevented us from having more of that show is just the set
Yeah.
piece, you know?
Jeez. So, no, all we can do is hope. That the problem is that the longer it takes to green light the season is the
Yep.
longer it's going to take for us to get that season once they do potentially green light it. Because season 3 they had I don't remember the exact timing, but it was like season 2 was not even halfway over, and they're like, "Yes, you're good. Start filming."
Yeah.
you know. Um, so we'll see if this delays things. If that's if the worst thing that comes after this is it's a longer wait for season 4, then absolutely I'll take that because I want everything they're going to give us
Yeah.
at this
Well,
point.
these haven't been like super fast turnarounds already.
Yeah,
Like there's been a break between the seasons as is.
yep,
I
close to
want to
two
say like
years
yeah, 2 years,
each.
like a year and a half or something on the first one. 'Cause the first one came out like weirdly over winter or something. I remember it
Yes.
like debuted randomly the year Karen and I were like hiking in the Pacific Northwest, so we would like come home and like crash and watch those. So yeah, I hope so though.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that wraps us up for here. Uh, Made it through with only one PC crash. So yay for me. Yay for me.
There it is.
Uh, uh if you're interested in going back and hearing our thoughts on the first 2 seasons of the show, reviewed season 1 in our ninth episode way back in 2022.
Wow.
And our season 2 review was our episode 89. So you could go check those out. And look for us next week. We are what next week is the my brain stopped braining.
We are daredeviling next
It's
week.
Daredevil next week, yes, and then the week after that is the Gold
Yes.
Treasure show. So,
Go and treasure
um,
hunting.
yes, Golden Greed on Netflix. So keep out an eye out for those. And again, I'm Brett. That has been Cody. And until next time, may you always find water and shade.
Here we go. Bye guys.